All right, thank you so much. And thank you for the invitation to speak at your event. My name is Maureen Josephine, and I'm super glad to join the Cape Town community to share a few things that I know regarding Flutter Gherkin. So today I'm going to give a talk on BDD with Flutter Gherkin. Before then, let me introduce myself. Yeah, so as I've said, my name is Maureen Josephine. I'm a Google developer expert in Flutter and Dart, recognized as the first female Flutter GDE in Sub-Saharan Africa and the first female Flutter GDE in Kenya, which I find as a great honor. Aside from that, I'm a WTM ambassador. So by WTM, this is a program by Google called the Women Tech Makers program that unites all women in tech to share and contribute towards technology and thrive together through learning resources, empowering other women in tech, and giving like a helpful support to anyone who is just getting started. Aside from that, I'm a tech communities lover. I'm the founder of Flutter Kisumu, a community where we invite speakers to come and give talks revolving around Flutter, just like the GDG Cape Town. And besides that, I'm also part of other tech communities around locally in Nairobi. So mostly reuniting with other people within the tech community and also sharing ideas, empowering others is what I love. So professionally, I'm a software engineer. I work as a mobile developer using Flutter as my major tech stack. And besides that, I also write backend applications using Java. Besides that, I'm also passionate about SQL and anything to do with database. So let's get into it. So this is my today's agenda. We're going to check what's BDD, the difference between BDD and TDD, which most people always confuse, the entire BDD process, how it actually works, and implementing how to implement BDD in Flutter. And in this case, we're going to use Flutter Gherkin package, which is going to help us do this BDD implementation. Then I'm going to show you like a short demo on how I've implemented this BDD in my Flutter application using Flutter Gherkin. And then lastly, if you have any question, you can feel free to shoot it. So what's BDD? BDD is precisely behavior driven development, more on like how does the app behave maybe when you launch it, the first time that you open an app, how does it behave? Because a research has it that many people, like a certain number of percentage of people own and have mobile phones, and within these mobile phones we have various applications. So BDD mostly aims at testing like how does like that specific application in your phone works. For example, when you open WhatsApp application, does it really open the way you expect it to do? If you send a message, does it really send it the way you expect it to do, or it doesn't send? What happens if you don't have like data connection or internet connection? What if the other person is not online? So behavior driven development, it's an agile software development process that involves collaboration between developers, the quality assurance testers, customer representatives, and the business as a whole, trying to make sure that everything works as expected. So there's something that people often confuse, that's the TDD and BDD. So what's really the difference between TDD and BDD? TDD is test driven development, which I'm sure many people try to adopt into their applications. And as I've mentioned, BDD is behavior driven development. So this is an a highlight of the difference between BDD and TDD. So BDD is more on testing like certain scenarios, like when you open the app, does it launch as expected? Does it work as expected? However, from the TDD side, it's more on writing test for the functional code. Let's say you are testing a feature of paying maybe for goods, and within your code, you are trying to write a test to validate that these goods are paid as expected. So when your test fails, you'll have to rewrite them so that it matches whatever expectation you expect from the whole output or the whole functionality. However, from the BDD side, it's trying to test like an end-to-end operation of an application, especially on scenarios. Is mostly based on scenarios, like when you open, if your app has like how do you call it, like a splash screen, does the splash screen show when you launch the app, or does the image pop up as it should? So that's like a simple difference between BDD and TDD. So what's exactly the BDD process that you can adopt in your application? So if you're wondering how does that process really work, do we really need BDD if we have already done TDD, like that's the test-driven development? Do we still need behavior-driven development? And the answer is yes, because in agile way of working, the three amigos, that's the business, development, and the testers, all work together to attain a certain goal. But how can a business, people from the business side understand whatever feature you're working on? So they also need to get like a clear cut on an end-to-end test of how the functionality of an application is working. And by this is where now the BDD process comes in. So as I've mentioned, so in the picture, we can see like the customer and the domain expert. We also have the QA, which is the quality assurance tester, and the developer. So in case of a new feature, let's say it's still an application to do some payments. So the customer wants an application that should be doing some payments, allowing both like bulk payouts of payments or individual payments or just direct bank transfer. So that's the story that comes in. And so the customer and the domain expert, let's say the project manager or the product owner, discusses this requirement with the customer and tries to validate if that functionality they want in the application is going to work. And after that is when they come up with stories. And these stories will be like small tasks, small achievable tasks, trying to focus on the end goal of building this payment application. So if one story is that you'd like the application to enable someone to do payment via M-Pesa. So M-Pesa is a mobile money transfer service in Kenya. So let's say if a customer specifically wants that payment via M-Pesa mode. So that's like one story. There can be as well another story, maybe payment with card or direct bank transfer payment. So that's also a separate story. So after validating these requirements, so from the developer, after coming up with this story and analyzing it and narrow it down to whatever requirement that you'd love to be built. So the developer comes in action to take in that feature to be built, or rather the story, and works on the actual development. So after that is when now, after completing the development, so where BDD comes in is the developer tries to validate that indeed this application remits money as expected, like the money moves from account A to account B. So in BDD, you are going to try to validate that scenario, like does this mobile money transfer works as expected, and things like that. So this is an image of the entire process of the BDD process. As I've mentioned, the first process is mostly about discussing the feature or the requirement, and then we write the scenario. Let's say if you open the app or if you press the payment button, then money should move from one account to the next account. Then after validating that scenario, you write the code. If it still fails, you have to like refactor till it works. I mean, till you get the green button. And after that, the test scenario passes. And if it doesn't as well, you can refactor like the whole process. So the question is, if we have like this entire BDD process, what are you really required to do to make BDD, like the behavior driven development approach, successful? So here comes in what like the terms that we use for the BDD development. So when writing these scenarios, we start with like a preset condition. So we have like the given term and the when and the then, where the given is when the preset condition, let's say when you launch your mobile application app, the payment application app. So given that when you launch that application, payment application app, so you ask yourself, what should happen? What should we expect when an event occurs? So in this case, let's say when we press the payment button within the payment application app, when you press like pay with M-Pesa or pay via card or pay via direct bank transfer. So what events are we going to expect? Then here comes the output. So the then is more on trying to tell you that when this action is done, let's say when the button is pressed, then we should expect like transfer of cash from one account to another. And by that, we also expect the account where the money came from to reduce, and the account where money is going to increase by with the specific amount that you sent. So this is the whole scenario of the preconditions that we need when writing the BDD tests. So how can we implement BDD in Flutter? And just to add on this, BDD can be implemented in other programming languages as well. So in Java, I've used the BDD approach as well, but I've used Karate to write this behavior-driven development test. However, in Flutter, I'm going to show you how to use Flutter Gherkin to implement the BDD process in a Flutter application to achieve the same thing that you can achieve when writing BDD tests in any other application, any other Java application, JavaScript application, or even Python application. So the Flutter Gherkin plugin, it's a Gherkin stroke cucumber parser, and it tries to test the runner for the Dart and Flutter application that you have. So what it does, it just passes whatever tests you've written within your application, and it's going to make it like it kinds of translate it to a readable form, such that when you run this application, it passes whatever tests you wrote, and you get like an output of what you are expecting. And something else to mention with BDD, it's more on like a language, like you just write it with wordings. You don't have to write like complex tests on what exactly you expect when you do something like TDD, since the BDD expects you to write like tests in form of scenarios, like when you launch this app, what should happen and things like that. So what do you really need to get started with Flutter Gherkin. So these are the steps that we'll need to use when working with Flutter Gherkin. So first of all, when you navigate to this link, you'll get like whole the readme of how this package works and an example of how it actually works. So these are the steps that we'll need to do when implementing Flutter Gherkin in a Flutter application. So first things first that you need to do is to import the package, the Flutter Gherkin package. After that is when now you create the .feature file. So these feature files are where now you're going to write your test scenarios to validate like a behavior of an application, pressing the button or showing an image or anything. And then you are also required to write like steps definitions. So what are these step definitions? These are the steps that are going to guide like the various scenarios that you're trying to test. So for example, if you have like a complex app that has a home screen and other sections of the app. So within the home screen, you'd like to write a step that I'd love to see an image that's going to be shown on the home screen. That's one step definition. And within the home screen, you'd also like to test if the texts are being displayed correctly. So that can be another step definition. And all of these refer to the feature file that combines the scenario that you're trying to test in your application. And then after completing that is when now you run the test with the Gherkin runner file using this command. So I'm just going to show you how I've implemented this in my my demo application, Flutter, my Flutter demo application that implements this Gherkin package, Flutter Gherkin package in it. And as I've mentioned, since we are using this Flutter Gherkin package, it's always wise to check for the latest version. So the latest version right now is 2.00, and you have to place it within your pubspec.yaml file. So I'm going to show you how exactly to place it. And after that, you also need these dev dependencies. We need the Flutter driver. So one thing that I have to mention is when you create like your first Flutter application, the Flutter test comes in by default, so you will not be required to add it. But what you need to add is the Flutter driver to enable the Gherkin parser to pass whatever test scenarios that you have in your app. So let me just exit this and show you exactly the process on how to do this. So this is a sample application of my portfolio app. Yeah, so this application is it's basically giving information about me. I wrote it back in 2019, and I always love trying to test things that I learn in it. So it has like everything in it, and if I come across any new feature that I would love to test, which is not like a client application, I usually use my portfolio app. So today I'm going to show you how I implemented the Flutter Gherkin package in my portfolio app to test a scenario. So as you can see right now, the app shows like a screen of the homepage of what entirely talks about me. So on the first bit is my name, then my image, my title, then languages and skills, talks about the languages, programming languages and skills that I currently have, and then also shows a list of my applications. If you press, you can also see them there, and my languages and skills, as you can see, and my blogs, which are a list of compiled list of my articles that I've written for Flutter and for other programming languages. So with this Flutter Gherkin package, I was trying to test this home screen, trying to see if the behavior that I expect. So in this one, I wanted to use like the most simple of the behavior that anyone can expect. So for example, if I launch my portfolio app, what should I expect to see? So in this case, I expect to see my name, I expect to see my image, and all those texts inside it, as well as like those cards. If you narrow it down to the widgets, because Flutter, everything in Flutter is a widget, I can test the icons, the text buttons, and everything that we have in the entire screen. So for today, I am only testing like my image, if it's behaving, like if I launch the app, does it show as expected? So I'm going to test my image, and if the text widgets are being shown as expected. So the first step that you need to do, as I mentioned, is adding the Flutter Gherkin package in your pubspec.yaml file. Yeah, so I added it a bit long time ago. So here is it. And because YAML file is usually case sensitive, so you have to make sure that it's properly aligned. So this is the Flutter Gherkin package, which is of version 2.00. And as I also mentioned, we need the Flutter driver for this to run. So I added the Flutter driver within the dependencies. And after adding this, so the next step is now importing the package to where you want to use it. And as I have mentioned, what I'm trying to test is only my home screen. And so I'll have to create like a feature file, as I had mentioned. So writing this behavior driven development requires the feature file and the steps definition. So first of all, I have like features folder, and under it there is the home.feature file. So under here, I wrote like a simple test that so the procedure on how to write these features is on the first line, you write the name of the feature. So in this case, it's the home screen. I named it the home screen feature. So what am I expecting to see on the home screen feature, which is now the scenario? So the scenario is test the home screen feature. And as I had mentioned, in BDD approach, we use the given, when, and then preconditions. So the given precondition is that when I open my portfolio app, which is here, so what should I expect? So after opening it, then after launching it, because when I open it, there's usually a splash screen which moves for a few seconds. Then it now navigates to the home screen. So the event is now when I launch it, what should I expect? So in this case, I'm only testing the asset image, which I have here, and the details text if they are being shown here. So that's the home feature. And to make this work, you need the steps definition, as I mentioned. So on the steps definition, this is more on the steps that I want to be shown, or rather the steps that I'm trying to test. So in this case, I wrote like sample 2 steps, that one for launching the home screen, and then another one after launching home screen. So what should I see next? And as you can see, the step definition generic, this is an inbuilt method from the Flutter Gherkin package. You'll get it when you're using it. So, and this launch home screen step is the name of the method. So what does it return? So this inbuilt method has like several return values that you can make it have. So if it's a when scenario, so in this case, this is that's why here it's written as when one, and I made it take like a string, and the Flutter world, which is also an inbuilt class within the Flutter Gherkin package. And the string here is when I launch the app. So what should I expect? It's going to have like that asynchronous process trying to locate whatever the value key that we have. And in this case, the input is going to be like whatever the input that relates to the whatever context that you have. And since it's an asynchronous method and we're using Flutter driver, so we call this from the Flutter driver utils, and then we have like the dot tap method, which means that when you tap the app, so what should you expect more? So this is basically trying to test the launching of the home screen scenario, like behavior. And then another step is after launching the home screen, what should I see next? So here is now when we have like the then condition. It also has this step definition generic, which is an inbuilt method within the Flutter Gherkin package. And within it, I gave it a name after launch home screen step. You can name it in any other way, since it's a method that you're going to call from the feature file. So what are you going to test here? So this is like a condition that after pressing the app, what should we expect to see? So in this case, we're expecting to see the image and the text. That's why I gave it like this string that I should see this image asset and the details that are being shown, and everything else is asynchronous process, which calls on the Flutter driver utilities that when tapped, like what happens next. And that's not the end of it, since we also need other things to make this Flutter Gherkin run as expected. So on the within, as you can see on the test driver folder, I have like the app.dat file. So what it does is within app.dat file, it's where we're going to enable the Flutter driver extension. And this one, when you click on it, so what really happens is that it's going to handle like that test, Flutter driver test, so that it becomes possible to pass whatever tests you have in your feature files, and make it like make Flutter Gherkin pass it correctly. So this is the enable Flutter driver extension method. And after calling it is call the main function after it. So in this case, we are going to call the run up method, which we under the run up method, we are going to pass in the my app class, which in this case is like this my app is a class that's going to call the splash screen as its body, and this splash screen at the end of after it's successful, it's then calls the home screen. So that's where you have to place it, so that when you launch the app, like the flow of the app continues as expected from the very first step to the last. And after that, you also need to create this app underscore test.dat file. So what this file does is that it's going to be more of like trying to call these methods that we have in our steps definition. So in this case, it's a future, and it's going to call like the Flutter test configuration, which is also inbuilt. And what it does is like trying to provide a configuration, default configurations for the Flutter test. And as you can see, it calls in the .features file. So this is the path for this feature package. It's like 2 dots, since it's a package. So, and this it's text. We give it like more of a regex expression, which is also built in within the Flutter Gherkin package. And also we have like the reporters. So these reporters, what they do is like they give a report of like the flow of the tests. If your tests fail or if the test passes, you can get a report of everything here. And then the step definitions, which you have the launch home screen, which was within the step definition. So this is the method that we created to cater for when I launch the app, what should I expect to see. And then next we have the after launch home screen, which should basically show the image. So after having all these in place, as I had mentioned, you build your application afresh. Let's say if you made the changes, like it's always wise to do like a Flutter clean to clean the previous builds, so that you can have like a clean build when trying to test this. And after that is now when you run the application. And as I mentioned, this is the method, sorry, this is the command that you'll have to use to run your Gherkin file. And it's pretty much interesting because when you're trying to build up on your project, you get like a preview of what you're trying to test. And the beauty of these BDD tests, anyone can write them, even the like people from the business side, since it's more of English language, and like trying to write a simple English on what scenario you expect. So after all this, you run it with this command, and you can see if whatever you are trying to test passes or it works as expected. So what I'm going to do is to share like a code snippet, like the whole repository of how I implemented this Flutter Gherkin, and you try to play around with it, since I won't be able to run out this because it's gonna take long and we are running out of time. So I'll push all the changes that I have on my codes, and then give like a comments on what exactly you need to do and what you can add to make it like achievable. And as I've mentioned, it's more of writing scenarios on steps from step A to step B. What do you expect when you launch the app and things like that. So thank you so much for the invitation. And if you'd love to connect or reach out if you have any questions, let's connect on LinkedIn with the handle at Jakelo and at LinkedIn as Maureen Josephine still. So another thing that I wanted to mention is I always hear people debating, is it really necessary to do like BDD, yet you can simply write integration tests and forget about it, since integration tests are end to end. So my take is that I've done both, and I usually find it's easier to write BDD in place of integration, or you can write all of them, like both of them, since at the end of the day you are trying to test like an end-to-end functionality of an app, like the end-to-end behavior of an app. But I would really love to hear your take on, is BDD necessary if you already have integration tests in place. So thank you so much for the chance, and I'd love to know if we have any questions. So I'll give it back to you, George.
Thank you, Maureen. That was a very interesting talk. Definitely learned more about Flutter Gherkin and something I wanted to try, but I'm not really in Flutter, but it's something I want to do in my side projects.
Yeah,
Let's
thank you.
see if there are any questions. Oh, we've got one.
Mhm.
This is from Sylvia. She asks, from one woman tech maker ambassador to another, what is a landscape in Kenya for female devs?
That's an interesting question. Actually, I hear company. Okay, I have a friend who is an Android developer lead, at a certain company. But what he usually says is that I think women are trying to shy away from applying to these roles. So my friend is an Android developer lead at their company. So when they usually launch for these openings, you find that most of the time only males apply and female don't. And when they try to break that balance, it's difficult to get like somebody who is a good fit for the role. So what I can say is that okay, we are still not there, but right now, whatever as we go by, whatever I'm trying to see is that more females are trying to get interested into tech, trying to take up like STEM roles in their capacity, and I feel like maybe in the next few years we'll be having more female developers in Kenya, like to increase the current number to occupy these openings that sometimes companies try to uh, break the bias by employing like also women into the team if in a male dominated team. So what I can say is that females are trying to get up there, though we are not there per se, but people are really trying to learn. In boot camps, I see many women trying to also get started with STEM courses. So I feel in the next few years, then we shall have like an improvement of that ratio.
I hope that answers your question, Sylvia. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so Ewald has a question for you. Do you get pushback from developers regarding BDD? How do you sell the idea to them?
Oh yeah, yeah. So this is interesting because in my former company, when a tech lead was trying to introduce BDD, people were like, "No, we shouldn't really do BDD since we already doing integration tests." And one thing that he really told us, like the benefits of BDD, is that the runtime. So when you write like a BDD test, since it's more of writing scenarios in the dot feature files, it's more of trying to write like a functional behavior of a functionality. So it's easier to know what exactly you would expect. And this is something that business analysts can also write. And I found it interesting because when we started using BDD in place, so we stopped using doing integration tests. We were only doing like test driven development, and now with BDD. So when we stopped doing that, also the business analysts were writing this BDD test because they know what the requirement is, they know what exact story we should have in place. So you find that as a developer, sometimes you being given a requirement, do this, and sometimes you try to figure out what's this requirement exactly. At the end of the day, sometimes you can build something or miss a requirement from whatever story since it was not clear enough. And so for cases where we have like business analysts also trying to write this BDD test, it's easy to get like scenarios that they expect. And yeah, so the most difficult thing was trying to convince developers to transition from writing integration test to BDD. And after some times we adjusted. So in a scenario where would have like backlashes on such decisions, you only plot in whatever advantage BDD has that not having BDD won't give you as a team. Other people usually complain that it's time taking, but at the end of the day, I usually feel that you have everything uh, checked and certified. Since sometimes if you have like a feature and you write like a slight different feature from the requirement, at the end of the day, the customer might not be happy since maybe a requirement was missed or a scenario was missed.